Chief Investment Officer at Cordros Capital Management, Arnold Dublin-Green, is with us, or Cordros Asset Management, rather. You guys have so many divisions. Arnold, you're welcome. Good morning to you. So, did you expect that? What's the justification for holding over in Ghana?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely expected. You're talking about an economy that had an inflation of about 54% in December 2022. Down to 23.2%, right? So you had at the time of 54%, you had NPR about 27%, starting from 13.5%. So Ghana taking it from 13.5% to 30% last year. It just makes sense to sort of keep it on hold at 29% because you're seeing inflation starting to curb and come under control.
Now, as far as the cash reserve ratio adjustment that Dr. Anderson has said, what do you make of that development there?
It's something like I've jokingly said it's in a Nigeria style. but I think essentially what the government is also trying to do is regardless, encourage banks to lend. But with NPLs, with non-performing loans at 24%, which is quite high in Ghana, you're going to find it difficult for banks to lend anyway. But I think what it's trying to do is also while he's also trying to encourage them to lend, is also trying to tighten using other instruments that he has.
I want to take a look at the metrics from Ghana, looking at GDP for the full year, 2.9%, I think. Then we have the reference rate at about where we are, 30 point. Yeah, thank you. Right. So. With inflation, though, decelerating, what's your outlook? How do you see the inflation matter working out?
So I think inflation is coming under control. It's still far from the central bank's targets of between 13 and 17%, but I think it gets to that band before the end of the year, Q3, Q4, towards the end of Q4, you see.
Okay.
Come into that.
All right. So we're looking at NPR at 29%. We've got GDP growth of 2.9. We've got that reference rate there above 30. T-bills 29.1. What's the investment case for Ghana, for all the clients of Cordros and everybody else who has, hey Arnold, should we? By the way, Hey Arnold was a famous show. Hey Arnold, what do we do? How do we look at Ghana? And again, there's a lot of moving parts. But what's the investment case for Ghana?
I mean, one thing to note about Ghana is it's virtually impossible, or almost hard for a foreign investor to invest in local currency T-bills.
Why is that? Why do they do that?
It's the way of protecting themselves, of protecting the currency, right? Because if you have debts that you have to pay within a year or in a year, you're going to have a lot of outflows come out. You're going to have a lot of dollars come out. You're going to have a lot of foreign investors, FPI, selling down CDs to take dollars out. So it puts a lot of pressure on the CDs. Yeah. So what they did is they protected themselves by not allowing foreign investors come into anything below 2 years. You have a 2-year note, or you had a 2-year note before the default and upward. Right. But on the local side, for local investors, a T-bill makes sense. You're talking about real rates now. Inflation's at 23.2%. T-bills are 29, 30% for 1 year. Right. It makes sense not to get into it. But for the rest of us foreign investors, the only way we can really play Ghana, if you're really still worried about the new notes from the bond swap, is the Eurobond. Okay. But Eurobonds, as you know, is going through a huge debt restructure. Right. December last year, there was probably a buy case, or even this quarter, there was a buy case for Ghana Eurobonds as a distressed investor or a special situation. Yeah. In the hope that at some point when this debt restructuring negotiation comes to bed, you will come out better than you were when you bought it. Yeah. But one thing that we are advising our clients is just to stay away and just watch and just wait and see how this whole thing plays out. Okay, well that does make sense. Now I did want to bring up something else. Futures for cocoa are Yeah. I don't know what you think is behind that. Is that a supply disruption? Isn't that and I think we've got the figures. It was 4,200 a ton. To 9,000. So like over 9. That's like 125% climb. That's doing better than copper and I think even gold. So this is, and again, these are the May 2024 contracts. But isn't this good for Ghana? So I don't know if it's Ghana positive. I don't know if it's Ghana, because if you look at the reason for the price increase, it's a decrease. It's a supply issue. Yeah. So there's a global supply issue with cocoa. And then coming down to Ghana, you have Ghana, a huge supply issue, whether it's from smuggling of cocoa, whether it's the increase in fertilizer prices as well. Yeah. That one could argue is off the Russia-Ukraine war. Yeah. So fertilizer prices is all-time high or close to all-time high. It took about a year to play out. So this kicked in last year, and then this year now you're seeing in cocoa prices, so farmers can't afford fertilizers to actually plant this cocoa. So you're having a huge supply issue, and that's causing an increase in price. And the only way that I could possibly argue if this might be positive for Ghana is if because Ghana makes its cocoa pod loans, right? So if they could one could probably argue that they could borrow for cheaper based on the value of their products being higher, and this could in turn maybe make it cheaper or easier for farmers to get fertilizer. But this is it's going to take about a year to play out. On the short term, I don't think it's positive for Ghana.
Still on the cocoa matter, the whole narrative around Africa exporting raw materials and then Europe and the developed nations profiting off of that. So with cocoa, of course, you're exporting the raw materials, and then you've got a multi-billion-dollar chocolates industry. Do we ever get out of that narrative? Do we need to see more? How does Ghana go from? Do you see what I'm saying? When do we stop this conversation?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I know that less than maybe 3 to 5 years ago, the Ghanaian president he was trying to put in a policy that encouraged local production or local manufacturing of cocoa or production of cocoa or cocoa products. It's something he tried to push. I know there was pushing for funding on that side, but playing out takes a while. So it's hard to put a point in that.
But if looking at a future where that was to happen, that boosts the investment case for the nation, does it not?
It does.
If you don't have,
it does massively.
It does.
Yeah.
All right. The IMF is expected to visit Ghana for, I guess, a second review of the extended credit facility early April or something. Are you bullish on another tranche of a $3 billion facility being doled out to Ghanaian coffers?
So I don't see why they don't pass the IMF checks on this one. They've been successful in the past two. Right now they're negotiating with Eurobond holders. My inkling is the IMF might want to hear from Ghana on a close, or at least getting close to a close on negotiations with Eurobond holders. So I don't see if it plays out, which we're hoping it plays out this quarter. This quarter is about to end this week. Next week. If it plays out how it plays out, then I don't see why Ghana won't qualify for another disbursement from IMF. And
the follow through from that, if you get another disbursement, I assume it helps the cedi. You've got more FX inflows coming in. What else is it? What else is the outcome of that?
I mean, definitely, election looks better as well for this current administration, which is in December.
I was going to get to that.
Because I mean, the cedi has been under a little bit of a pressure this year. I think it's down about 9%.
Yeah.
Every other frontier market currency
who's not down against the dollar?
Normally in Ghana, at the end of every quarter, you have these huge dividend payouts by international corporates. So what happens is your MTNs and your international, your FDIs, they then pay themselves the dividends to parent companies. So this also puts extra pressure on the cedi. Every end of the first quarter. So I'm expecting a bit of pressure come in, but I think if this disbursement comes in maybe Q2.
If the timing lines up.
Which is what I think they're trying to time it. I think they try to time it. I think you have some support on the cedi.
You've already mentioned the election. I mean, South Africa has elections. We just saw a big election in Senegal. Young guy, Bassirou coming in, 44 years old. I mean, is the election a major headwind? I may ask you about Ghana's other headwinds, but how do you see that playing out?
I think election is a major headwind, but I think the bigger headwind for me and for us as investors looking in is the negotiation of the Eurobonds, of the debt restructuring is about $13 billion that has to get negotiated.
Wow.
And it's a lot, and it might take longer than everyone expects. So I think they have to jump over that headwind first before we start looking at others. Okay. Well, I won't ask you about Nigeria or South Africa because they hold on. But I always round up by asking you whether you are bullish on investment on the African continent as a whole. Looking at 2024, are you? Definitely.
Are you telling clients to go there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
the Senegal look good with. I mean, I'm not going to get into specifics, but I'm just saying with what's going on there. I mean, they've been a stable democracy.
Yes.
But just Africa in general.
Senegal had a lot of issues last year, right?
They did.
It was back and forth.
Macky Sall was acting funny.
Exactly. So this is a relief. This is a sigh of relief. Okay, fine. There's a leader and there's a political party now. We know where it's going.
Yeah.
Why not? It's looking good. Egypt, as you know, I like Egypt. We spoke about it.
You like Egypt a lot.
Right? Nigeria is, I think, at a turning point.
Yeah.
Things are starting to make sense. All the policies that were coming in place from last year and this quarter will start to make sense, I think, for Nigeria. So Nigeria looks good. T-bills are, 20, 25, 26% yield for us.
If we get another hike today, then
who knows? So I think Africa's turning around. Africa's finally turning around.
Arnold, I always enjoy talking about investing on the African continent with you. Arnold Dublin-Green, Chief Investment Officer at Cordros. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.